guys, it's me, Fuzzy Polka Dot, and today's video is going to be how I made my bin cage, and I'm going to explain a bit about them first. Bin cages are definitely the best for beginners because they're easy to make, easy to clean, fairly large, and pretty inexpensive, unlike critter trails, which are quite expensive and are very small. I also get asked a lot of questions like, I have a critter trail and it's hooked up to a Habitrail Ovo and then hooked up to a bin cage. Is that okay? And yes, that is okay, because as long as you have a bin cage that is at least 105 quarts and it's connected to whatever, it'll be fine, because you have the minimum at least just in the bin cage alone, and so you can add whatever you want after that. So the minimum cage size for a bin cage is 105 quarts, which is the cage that I have, and it is 27 inches by 16, which equals 432 square inches, and the minimum is 360, and I have the 105 quart, and that is the minimum. I would also make sure that it's long 105 quart and not tall, because I do see those, and you'll want to make sure that it is clear. So now on to how I made my bin cage. First, you will need a bin, which you can get at Walmart or any other store like that for around $10. I got mine for $12, I think. And then you will need some mesh, which you can get at a hardware store, which is usually under $10. Wire cutters, pliers, wire, a drill, an X-Acto knife or any other knife. Some duct tape and a dry erase marker is usually preferred over a regular marker. So I only have one bin cage that Muffin is obviously living in right now. I didn't tape when I actually built it, but I will try to explain to you the best I can on how I made it, and yeah, let's get started. So you're going to take your bin cage and remove the lid, and then you're going to want to decide what you want to do for your windows, how big you want them, and I have a window here and down at the end of the bin cage and on the top. So with your duct tape, you're just going to go around the square that you want and cover up the square so you'll know where to cut, and you can do that on the other side as well. Do keep in mind that if you are using a water bottle and you're hooking that onto your mesh, you will want to have a opening big enough for that. You have duct taped around the perimeter of the square you want to cut out, then you can just take your X-Acto knife or whatever other knife, heat it up, and cut the square out. And you'll need an adult's help for this part, and do make sure that you heat your knife, because my dad hadn't done that when he cut this, and what happened is that he cut so far that he did make a slash in the cage on all the meshes. It doesn't bother anything and it doesn't have any effect on the cage, but I just would play it safe and heat the knife up. So once you have cut out the square, then it's time to put on the mesh, and you can just take some wire cutters and cut the mesh out slightly bigger than the opening you have. So then there is an inch just hanging off the perimeter of the whole square. Now that you have your mesh cut out, you can just line it up around the hole and just line it all up so there's about an inch sticking out on each side. And your marker, you're going to take it and just dot a couple holes around the mesh where you're going to want to drill and wire it. Once you have your holes all placed in and it's all lined up with everything, then you're going to take your drill and drill each of the little tiny dots out, and this is so you can thread the wire through and hold your mesh. So once you have your two holes drilled and it's lined up with the mesh, you can take a small piece of wire and thread it through the holes, and using your pliers you can just twist the wire and then cut off the long tail and push it in with the pliers as well. So you'll want to do this with each hole until you have completely finished the mesh on each side, and then once it is all finished, you can go to the top. So what I did first for the top was just cut around this weird shape on the top of the lid, and I used a heated knife for that. So once you have cut out the whole top, you can put some mesh on top of the lid, and basically the same steps apply for this. I just drilled the holes so that it was lined up with the mesh, threaded the wire and twisted it, cut off the tail, and just laid it down, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Now for me, I think this took about 3 hours, which might sound a little crazy, but as you can see, I cut a lot of mesh and had a very big opening. Most people don't have the biggest opening that I do, so that's probably why it took longer, and we were doing this for the first time, and it was pretty experimental, and yeah, it should take a little less time for you, but that was just what it was for me. So I thought I would show you what I did to my water bottle, which I did hook to the mesh. Now on my mesh, the squares were too small to fit my water bottle. This may not be the same for you, but if so, what I did was take a 3x3 square out of the mesh. This way my water bottle could actually fit through and into the cage.
Hello. Hello, Muffin.
Muff. Yup, here she is to see what all the commotion is. What is this? Muffin, you're acting like a baby. What are you doing? So I guess that's something else to mention. If your hamster tends to like to escape, always make sure that you leave the lid on the bin cage and that your mesh doesn't have to be quite as big as mine. It'll just prevent escapes. So yeah guys, that's all for this video. I hope you've learned a bit more about bin cages and that you have enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Bye!